What is going on, guys? This is the Trips Wide podcast for Week 11 of the NFL season, presented by RotoQL. I am your host, Evan Cheney. Today, I am joined by Gary Huber. How are you doing today, Gary?
Doing well, Evan. To the viewers, I hope you didn't miss us too much. We had some troubleshooting issues last week. I believe we got those resolved, and looking forward to Week 11. We're halfway through the season, which kind of seems like we just started learning about all these teams.
Yeah, I mean, well, Week 11, we're more than halfway through the year, but that's even more intense. I mean, Thanksgiving's next week. That's crazy. You know, where does time go? You know,
forward. It
just
always
feels
goes forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it just feels like we just recorded the Week 1 podcast like a week or two ago. You know,
Yeah.
and it's all of a sudden Week 11 now. It's like, dude, come on.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Well, let's ship a GPP before the season ends. Let's do it this week.
Yeah, let's do that. That sounds amazing, actually. So yeah, let's just man, I can't talk already. Let's just dive into these games here. Our first one being the Pittsburgh Steelers going up against the Cleveland Browns. Steelers favored by 7.5 points right now in a game that has a 46.5 point total. No injuries to note on the. Wait, is there? Gary, are there any injuries for the Steelers that I should know about?
No, I don't think so.
No.
I mean, Ladarius Green's come back. He should be full to go, and Big Ben's no longer on the injury report.
Yeah, my list was like it just said NA. Like what do you mean NA? It doesn't. It usually just tells me none. But whatever. That's besides the point. And no injuries on the Browns side, so I can end my rant for a second there. All right, let's just look at these Pittsburgh Steelers first. I don't know. I mean, Antonio Brown's price went up $600 on DraftKings from $8,900 to $9,500. Playing in Cleveland, I don't know if I like a whole lot of these Steelers players this week because, you know, historically, both Antonio Brown and Ben Roethlisberger have played much worse on the road than at home. And, you know, and it's the second game of I believe it is, second game of a divisional matchup. No, wait, it's not. This is only the first time they're playing. I sound silly with all this flip-flopping, but because I was looking at the game logs I was looking at the thing from January 3rd of the week 17. So no, this is the first time they're playing this year. So just erase that thought that I just had. And Gary, I'll let you speak on this matter because obviously I'm just all in cahoots right now.
So I mean, I'm looking to the Steelers for fantasy production this week. There's a couple interesting things to note. One is the weather. There is a weather front that's coming through the East Coast. It's going to impact a couple games. This one, the one in New York, and the one in Washington. And winds can be between 20 and 30 miles an hour on Sunday. So that's something to keep in mind. If the winds are above 20 miles an hour, I always discount passing, depending on how much above 20 miles per hour it is. So if it's really windy in Cleveland, I'm going to give a bump to Le'Veon Bell against the Cleveland defense, who's awful against running backs. They're awful against anything. But I would lean towards him. And then Antonio Brown, you know, I always view him, he's going to be around $9,000, $10,000 in salary. The interesting thing this week is that Le'Veon Bell is a lot closer. Typically, you get like a $1,500 discount on him, and then it makes no sense to pay up for AB unless in tournaments. But now they're pretty much in the same price range, which kind of makes me start looking Antonio Brown's way more. And I get the whole point that they do worse on the road. But this is also the Cleveland Browns, who are historically a bad team this season, which is saying something for their franchise. So I'm not afraid of anybody on the Steelers offense. I'll be looking to Bell, I'll be looking to Big Ben, AB, and then Ladarius Green. They're talking about getting him more involved, and the Browns give up the most fantasy points to tight ends in PPR leagues. So I would keep an eye on him as well.
Yeah, I can definitely get behind some of the logic there. But it's like, I don't know, 9,500 for Antonio Brown going up against Joe Hayden, might not be the best spot to get behind, but certainly Le'Veon Bell. I can get behind him this week. Cleveland being 29th in all of football against opposing running back or against the rushing game, opposing rushing games according to Football Outsiders DVOA statistic. So yeah, Le'Veon Bell certainly I can get behind that 100%. But Ben Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown, especially with a projected temperature of 37 degrees and 23-mile-an-hour winds, that is going to be a running backs game right there. So Le'Veon
Certainly
Bell,
seems.
yeah. So Le'Veon Bell in that situation is definitely on my radar in that spot.
Yeah, I think. Well, how do you? This is going to come up a couple times on the slate. How do you approach bad weather games?
Well, there's certain factors you can get behind, weigh. First of all, you can look at physicals. Ben Roethlisberger's physicals is definitely something to look at here, because quarterbacks with larger hands tend to do better in these types of games where the weather is crappy. I'm just gonna say it. It's gonna be crappy weather in Cleveland on Sunday. So, definitely quarterbacks with bigger hands would succeed in this situation. So Ben Roethlisberger does kind of have a slight edge there because of that. But again, I just don't think the matchup again, with the home road splits that he tends to have over his career, I don't think this is a perfect spot for him anyway. I think if the weather were a little nicer, I can bump him up a little bit, but him and Antonio Brown, I just can't do it. I can't do it with the weather, especially with the wind. I just can't do it.
Well, it's really the wind for me. I mean, 30 degrees
Yeah.
is not too cold for football. You're in pads, whatever. But if it's over 20 miles an hour, that impacts the passing game. And I'm not afraid of Joe Hayden, but we've kind of on the other side of the ball. I'm interested to hear the Crowell Whisperer.
Oh.
Is this an Isaiah Crowell game?
Oh, there's such a hot take here. Kind of. Pittsburgh is like okay against the run. They're not great, but they're okay. And obviously we beat a dead horse kind of with the Steelers stuff, with the bad weather and how we like Le'Veon Bell because of that. And I think you have to look on the other side here and look at both Isaiah Crowell and Duke Johnson as kind of being in similar situations, right? Because Isaiah Crowell's and the pricing is really nice here on both these guys. I mean, you got Crowell at $3,900 and you have Duke Johnson at $3,800. I think that, I think the Browns are going to be heavily relying on the passing game here. So Duke Johnson will probably be in the better spot, but I'm not going to discount either of these running backs. And as the Isaiah Crowell whisperer, I'm not going to fault you for using Isaiah Crowell. He's going to be extremely low owned. And plus, I can see him getting a bump in opportunities here just because Cody Kessler sucks, right? I don't see how anyone can trust Cody Kessler throwing this ball this week. So yeah, I'm going with Isaiah Crowell here, and I'm gonna roll him out in some tournaments. Not gonna lie, I'm gonna make 50 tournament lineups, maybe even a few more than that, and I'm gonna say Isaiah Crowell might be in like 5% of them.
Okay. Hey, I brought it up because I'm on Isaiah Crowell as well this week. And I just wanted to make sure that the Whisperer was on the same page. The Steelers' defense is a big surprise to me how bad they are against the run. Them and Denver have been huge surprises for me. They really don't stop anybody on the ground. They give up the third most fantasy points to opposing running backs. They give up the third most receiving yards to opposing running backs, which is huge for sites like DraftKings where you have PPR. Crowell had, I think, 3 or 4 receptions last week, so he does get some involvement in the passing game. He's not like Blunt, who's not going to get anything. So I like both of those options as tournament flyers, and no one else on the Browns.
Yeah, I mean, outside of the running backs, no, there's no way you can convince me to play any of these guys.
Yep.
Might give a bump to the Steelers defense in that situation, but it's more of a wait and see approach to see how that weather develops over the course of the rest of the week here. So yeah, we talked a good chunk about that game there. Let's talk about our next one here. We have the Baltimore Ravens going up against the Dallas Cowboys. Um, right now, the Cowboys are favored by 7.5 points in a game that features a 45-point total. No injuries, it looks like, to speak of. So let's just jump into this Baltimore Ravens team here. I don't think I like anyone. Um, Steve Smith. I always like to give the benefit of the doubt to Steve Smith. He's 6K on DraftKings this week, so I don't know.
Seems like a lot.
That price is very high. 55. He's 6,000 on DraftKings. He's 5,500 on FanDuel, where it's a lot better. So if you are going to play Steve Smith, use him on FanDuel and not DraftKings. Cause I mean, you can use him on DraftKings. I wouldn't. It's not my preferred situation, but 5,500 for Steve Smith on FanDuel is very reasonable, especially for the upside that he could provide to you, and just how bad the Cowboys' defense is. Right? I mean, they've been kind of covering themselves up as using the strategy of their offense is their greatest defense, but really they're 25th. They're 25th in the league in pass defense. So in that situation, I'm definitely going to look at Steve Smith as a tournament flyer on both websites. But I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on FanDuel. How do you feel about this? Because I've been rambling away, and I really want to know how you feel about this.
Do we have news on whether or not Morris Claiborne for the Cowboys is going to be back, as well as the safety that was out last week?
I haven't heard anything different from what is currently. I mean, I don't think the statuses have changed on him.
Okay.
I still think they're out.
Well, if they're out,
yeah, I think they're still out this week.
If they're going to be out, then I like taking a chance on one of these wide receivers. The Cowboys give up the 6th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. I would prefer Mike Wallace if both the cornerback and safety are out, just because I feel like that exposes the deep threat, and that's Mike Wallace's game.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm taking a tournament flyer, I kind of want that huge upside. I don't want to count on Steve Smith to catch 12 receptions. I'll take 7 or 8 for Mike Wallace and hope I get that 70-yard touchdown. But that's really it for me. Just a couple wide receiver darts for the Ravens. And on the Cowboys side, I'm avoiding. I don't know the DVP stats for the Ravens don't really match up here, and they're second best against the run. They're not really bad in any statistical category. And Ezekiel Elliott at 8,000, I'm probably going to sell high on this stock this week, not play him. Dak Prescott's interesting at 6K, but I'm not really seeing anything jump out to me. How about you?
No, I think you could have some low exposure to a Dak Prescott, Des Bryant stack, but again, I mean, according to, I just finally discovered these not just discovered, but I finally learned the keys of these DVOA stats here after all this time. As the non-believer I am, Baltimore is number 1 in rush defense in all of football, and they're 6th in pass defense. And I can't get behind it. I really can't. Again, maybe some very low tournament exposure, but really nothing else for the Cowboys offense. I mean, I think they'll still probably win this game, in a very low scoring bout, but still, not a fan here. I think there's many better options to go. And I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe
let's find one of those better games.
Yeah, there's much better fantasy options this week. And speaking of better fantasy options, we have an interesting game here between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Detroit Lions. Lions are favored by 6.5 right now in a game that features a 47.5-point total. No injuries for the Jaguars to look at. Theo Riddick is questionable for this game with the ankle. He's been limited in practice all week, but he should be good to go for the game on Sunday against the Jaguars. So let's just look at this Jaguars offense here, Gary, and I like it. I definitely like it for tournaments. I don't know where I want the exposure, but I want it. I kind of want something with Blake Bortles. I know he's disappointed many people, but I kind of want something there because he's 5,400 and he's kind of interesting. And maybe Allen Robinson finally breaks out of whatever the hell he's been doing all year. that's that's kind of my bold take there.
He showed up last week. I mean, he got 31 fantasy points last week.
Yeah, I mean, he finally did something, but let's just hope it's consistent, you know? And, I mean, you look at Detroit, they really don't have a good defense. They're 32nd in football against the pass, and they're 25th against the run, including, and these bad numbers include being 22nd in football against wide receiver ones, which I think bodes very well for Allen Robinson.
Yeah. Hey, I think Allen Robinson's in play. I think Bortles is in play as a GPP flyer. Although I feel like this is a similar situation to, I'm blanking on the name. Who's the quarterback for the Texans?
Brock Osweiler.
Thank you. Wasn't Osweiler just in this exact same position against the Lions like 5 weeks ago, and everyone was like, "Oh, he's going to turn it around." All those concerns about his.
So you're saying it's a trap?
I think it's a trap for Bortles, okay. But there's still production to be found. Like I will have exposure to A-Rob, maybe even some Chris Ivory at 3,600. Like this is a game that could produce a lot of touchdowns. The defenses are pretty bad. I do want exposure. Bortles isn't for me this week.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely get behind that thought there. Really, when it comes to Allen Robinson, I do see kind of a trappish area to this, where Darius Slay is projected to be on that defense for the Lions this week, and I really think that might help some of their defensive woes as a team. So if Allen Robinson, if his ownership kind of creeps up as the week kind of goes on here, I might be off him. I mean, or I might just lessen my exposure to him, and I might just pivot to a guy like Julius Thomas, especially in a situation. I'm gotta double check this, but I don't think the Lions are too good when it comes to opposing tight ends. No, they're 28th. No, they're 28th in all of football when it comes to opposing tight ends. So Julius Thomas at 3,500 is very justified in this situation, especially if Darius Slay is in this game and people are going to just flock to Allen Robinson. I'm buying Julius Thomas stock at this point.
Yeah, that's a great leverage play. If ownership is going to A-Rob, I'm with you. I will go off of him and I'll go to Julius Thomas.
Yeah, that's good thing I made that discovery, or else we would have missed a golden play. All right, look at the other side here with the Lions. I mean, the Jaguars are bad. Let's not get it mistaken, folks. Jaguars are bad. But how bad are they, really? Well, they don't do very well against the pass, which might bode well for some of these. Actually, no, the run. They're 13th against the pass. Not good against 28th against the run. All right, I have my shit together here. Theo Riddick in this situation. What do you think?
I love Theo Riddick this week. I got some stats I'm trying to pull up. Basically, he's like a third of their red zone offense. And in a game where I think they'll put up 3-4 touchdowns, I want exposure to him. I think he's a cash game viable running back at his price point. On DraftKings, he's what? He's
5,100.
5,100. That seems too low for a passing down back, and also going to get like 10 to 15 carries.
Oh yeah, I'm all aboard the Theo Riddick train this week if he does end up playing and that he's all healthy. The one issue that I do have is that against pass catching running backs, Jaguars are number 1 in the league when it comes to defending pass catching running backs. However, I think Theo Riddick could possibly do it on the ground this week. I know a lot of his production comes from the air. However, at the same time, he does get some rushing attempts. Again, like you said, he gets the red zone opportunities. So I think Theo Riddick, this is a week for Theo Riddick where his game script turns a lot more to the run, like the physical run game, as opposed to the passing game.
So what's that stat about the Jags covering pass catching running backs? Is it in terms of receptions, in terms of yards?
Yeah, in terms of allowing receiving, when it comes to types of receivers on FootballOutsiders.com, the Jaguars are ranked number 1 when it comes to defending running backs as wide receivers.
Okay, I mean so that's surprising because they're middle of the pack from my end for giving up production to running backs. But here are the stats that I was going to bring up. So he's
that also might be because they're 28th against the run. So it's like they're really bad against the run, but really good against pass catching running backs. So it kind of just evens out in the middle there. So I could probably see why I might say that. Right. So I don't know. I do like Theo Riddick though on the ground game a lot more than I do on the receiving end this week. But either way, I do believe he's going to have a good game. That is one of my bolder calls for this week. All right. Our next game up here, we have the